This is a 2016 Honda CB500F. I'm going to change the brake fluid on the rear brakes. Alright, so on the bike, we've got the rear brake pedal right here. It comes up, we've got the rear brake master cylinder right in here. That's this guy located behind our little foot peg rear set thing. Here's the master cylinder right there. Here's the brake line going to the rear brake caliper, which is behind our muffler, which is now visible right here. And you can see on top of the brake caliper, we've got a bleed screw. This guy is our bleed screw. It's got a nice little rubber cap on there. Take that cap off, and now I've got, this is an 8mm bolt head. So we've got an 8mm wrench, and this guy is gonna go right on the top of there, like so. And I've also got an oil drain pan and a little makeshift drain hose. This is out of aquarium tubing, 1/4-inch tubing. This goes up onto here and goes over that so that you end up with something just about like that. Then we want to make sure the other end of our little drain hose here falls down into our oil drain pan like that. And then if we come back over to our master cylinder, you can see there's another line that goes down into the master cylinder, and it's this line right here, and that is our brake reservoir behind this little passenger peg stay. And in order to get to that guy, what I'm going to do to make my life easier, I'm going to remove that passenger peg stay. These are little 8mm Allen head bolts on there, so I'm going to take those off, take off this bracket for the passenger peg, and then we'll have clear access to our reservoir. So here's my little 8mm hex bolt, or hex head wrench. I'm going to move this guy off to the side. And now we have clear access to our brake reservoir. And you can see there's 2 Phillips head screws on the top of that guy. Alright, then on this brake reservoir there is a bolt that holds this thing onto the bike. This guy right here, and this is also an 8mm head on that. I'm going to go ahead and remove that so I can pull this guy out a little bit and get access to those Phillips head screws. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, you can see this guy, if I let it go, is just going to fall down. And all my little brake fluid, if this top were off, would fall out. We don't want that. So I'm going to loosen these guys, the Phillips head screws on top, loosen those. And then I'm going to reattach this back onto the bike so it stays nice and level. Alright, and then this guy takes DOT4 brake fluid, and I'm not using any specific brand here. This is just what I have on hand. And so this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the cap off of here. You can see there's a little metal cap, and there's like a little plastic cap on there. Set those guys aside. And we got a little rubber seal in there. That guy. Set all that stuff aside. Now you can see our nice darkly colored fluid, and this is why I'm changing it, because you'll see the new fluid is almost clear, and as it ages, as it goes through different heat cycles, it darkens like this. And so now we know it's time to change it. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and give this guy some pumps. I'm going to hold the brake pedal down. Then we're going to move back to our caliper here. I'm going to loosen this guy. I'm going to tighten this guy. I'm going to let the brake pedal go. You can see in the reservoir that the brake fluid level is going to go down as fluid drains out into the oil pan. And so we want to keep an eye on this fluid level and replace it with clean fluid. So hold the brake pedal down, release the caliper bleed screw, the pedal will go down, close the caliper bleed screw, release the pedal, and just continue to do that. Because we do not want to get air into this brake fluid reservoir. If you do get air into there, it's not a huge deal. It'll just take you a bit of time to bleed out the whole system, the air out of the system, and the real pain is potentially getting air into the master cylinder, and that can be difficult and annoying to get air out of. So make your life easier and keep an eye on this guy and don't let it run out. You might think you're being inefficient with the use of the brake fluid and using too much of it because you're going to be diluting the fluid in here to some degree, and therefore using, in theory, more than you need on the brake fluid, but trust me, you're not. This is the most efficient way. You will eventually get it to nice clear color up here in the fluid reservoir. Alright, and then after all my bleeding, I'm pretty happy with the color on this guy. You can see it's much clearer than it was before. Even once I got to this color in the reservoir, I continued to flush more fluid through there to ensure we got fluid transfer of new fluid all the way through the whole system. So now we're here, I'm going to bring the level down just a little bit. As you can see in the reservoir here, we got a top mark for the top maximum height of fluid in there and a low mark for the minimum height of fluid in the reservoir. So right now, because the bike is tilted over at an angle, I'm going to drain some of this fluid down so that when we bring the bike back to flat level, it should be sitting pretty close to that line. Alright, so back here, go ahead, snug this up a little bit, and then I can pull my drain hose off, take my wrench off, put my cap back on there. And the torque specs for this bleed valve is 4 foot-pounds. And you can see it's still nice and clean back here. I didn't spill any fluid. If you do spill any fluid, use some brake cleaner and wash this area off very nicely. You don't want to get any fluid onto your actual brake system, onto the rotor there. And then back to our reservoir here, I'm going to go ahead and put our little rubber gasket back in there, like that. Put a plastic cap thing back on there, and our little metal cap. I got the one screw I can get in there. The other screw I don't think I can quite fit in there, so I'll go ahead and remove this reservoir again. I can get that screw in there. Go ahead and screw this cap back down. Alright, and the torque specs for these screws on the top, this is 1.1 foot-pounds. And then this guy goes back on here. And you can see that I did spill some brake fluid off of this guy. I leaked down just a little bit. And we ended up with some brake fluid on our swing arm there, as well as on the exhaust. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to clean that off with some brake fluid cleaner. Alright, and then our bolt here that holds this brake fluid reservoir on, there are no torque specs for that, so just tighten that down snug. And then our bracket, our foot peg bracket, this goes back on. And the torque specs for these is 27 foot-pounds. There, and after all is done, we should have nice brake pedal feel here, nice hard brake pedal feel. If you don't have hard brake pedal feel, if it's spongy or anything like that, or if the pedal just, if it doesn't stop, if it continues to just go down all the way, then you've got air in your system here, and you need to continue to bleed this thing and bleed the air out. You may need to take the master cylinder off the bike completely and what they call bench bleed the master cylinder to get the air out of there. Because of the little valves and chambers in there, sometimes air gets stuck in there. So that can get complicated, so try and avoid that. The key is always keep the fluid topped up in this reservoir. Never let the fluid run down. All in all, this took me about 10 to 15 minutes to do this job. In a very satisfying way to spend a couple minutes. So thanks for watching this video. Get out there and ride. Enjoy life while you can.